Question from JP, who says, UB3, with the announcement of the Horizon Zero Dawn show being scrapped, do you feel like we've already hit the ceiling for video game adaptations? I don't think so. I think we're slowly tipping the bucket out. Like, maybe there's some stuff that's clinging on, but the vast majority is about to thump to the floor.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not a big Horizon person. Sorry, so I haven't really been like following the news of this. And it does kind of feel my one hope with this, rush to land grab video games as an adaptation. Is that maybe there is more caution, it's we've seen the initial kind of like, video game's gonna be the next big thing now. Yeah. Maybe there's a little kind of, we can take a little, I think they probably will move ahead with the Horizon show just under a different kind of creative lead, because I believe the reason this one has been scrapped is because it's related to the allegations that have come out around, the Umbrella Academy and stuff. So yeah, no, I think we've still got plenty more video game adaptations to come, unfortunately. I'm not a big believer in this being a solid avenue for Hollywood.
Oh, see, I think where we're at the minute, like, because I don't know if either of you have seen Fallout, but Fallout's awesome. Like, that's great. Very well done.
My concern is that it becomes the new superhero movie thing.
Totally.
And like Fallout for me, like that, I've not watched it, but it's still the exception and not the rule. You know what I mean?
Oh, massively.
And yeah. My big concern with all of this is just video games from a presentation aspect in terms of like the big IP that we're familiar with and the story of the presentation. It's all heavily derived from stuff we've already seen in cinema before and what cinema has done better on a narrative and presentation front. So I'm hoping that, and I would put Horizon in that bracket again. Sorry, Sai. But I hope that if they're going to be doing video game adaptations as the next big thing, that they are a little bit more considerate with what they are choosing and aren't just going, let's just do this because, for me, PlayStation feels like they're forcing the brand with both this and the Ghost of Tsushima movie that's being done, I believe, by Chad Stahelski is involved in it. Mm-hmm. And, I love Chad Stahelski, I love the John Wick movies, but I don't think a Ghost of Tsushima movie makes sense either. Like, just make a real, it's a great game, but just make a real samurai movie, if that makes sense. If you want to do a samurai movie, just make a proper samurai movie. Don't make it a video game movie. Like, this is the thing that's frustrated me. I feel like we're still in an era where we're heavily mired in the gamification of video games as an adaptation front. It's a lot of gobbledygook there, but my short answer to all this is that no, I don't think this is the end. I just hope that they all calm down a bit and maybe just
You'll get there. Sai, what do you think of it?
I think when you talk about Ghost of Tsushima, like, I get it completely. You could just make a samurai movie, but because you're going to put like an IP name on it and people are going to go, what's that? And people are going to go, oh, it's a video game thing. That's still going to turn a lot of people off that don't like, I don't know about video games. So I just won't go see the samurai movie because I won't understand it for whatever reason, which may or may not be the case. Sony are making some weird choices. I don't think Horizon is a great pick for an adaptation. I think it'll be really, really hard to do. Mm-hmm. So I've always been mixed feelings, but yeah, you're absolutely right. The reason that this has been, I would say temporarily cancelled, I think it's probably going to move forward under a different showrunner. Has got nothing to do with reactions to video game adaptations. I think the Fallout is not the exception. I think it's part of the rule. I think we're in an era where most of them have been good in the last few years. Fallout, Last of Us, the Mario movie, the Sonic movies. There's been some strength. I'm not saying I agree that it's a good thing to do moving forward, but I think most of them have been good recently.
Detective Pikachu ruled.
Right, so this is my thing. You've mentioned 3 kids movies there, and they're primarily kids movies rather than, if you talked about like a straight like video game adaptation in terms of we're making video game movies, I think there is a different... You can't look at the Sonic movie to me and be like, I'm enjoying the Sonic movie because it is literally like a one-for-one adaptation of the Sonic storylines and games that I grew up with. It's very much still kind of like wacky CGI creature with, generically boring comedic foil human protagonists or whatever.
True. No,
and I mean, the Last of Us, for me, it's like we're adapting the story of the games. It's a very straight adaptation. So for me, it's just kind of like, even if they're quantifiably good, I'm just kind of like, for me, what I meant with the Fallout stuff is that I think Fallout shows that if you're going to adapt a video game IP, you do something unique within the world of that game. You don't just try and like retell the story or retrofit it for some kind of demographic you're trying to hit.
That
I
makes
guess.
sense. I would say Castlevania falls into the good bracket there because it does use a lot of lore from different games, but it adapts it in different ways and combines it in different ways. But admittedly, that is just two good examples, so you might well be right. I think, obviously there's lots still to come in the next few years. We just talked about Watch Dogs, probably going to be terrible. The Borderlands movie is going to be hilarious.
Oh my God.
So there's some really bad stuff definitely coming. I just hope that maybe there is some good stuff as well. But I also have the same concerns that we are just going to get into the superhero issue that you guys just talked about, for sure.
I think that there was a Hollywood Reporter article about how like the lens of Hollywood is going from comic books onto video games. Like, it is the next archive of stories and characters and pre-baked fandom that like they can focus on and adapt everything. And I for now I think that it's going to be a bell curve. Like, we're on the way up at the minute. Like, we're still waiting to get whatever happens with Horizon. There's the God of War show still to come. I think it's interesting looking at different studios' approaches to it as well. Like, you have, because the whole thing with Sony is like, obviously they have the whole revamped PlayStation Studios thing, and you've got Horizon out of that, you got Ghost of Tsushima, and Last of Us. Obviously Last of Us, I think that changed a lot of stuff where it's like, to me it was pointless and I really didn't care less about that show, but a lot of people absolutely loved it. But it stayed so close to the story, even the way certain scenes were shot, like the template's already there, which to me was like, well, then it's pointless doing a passive medium version of this because the cutscenes are already that. But a lot of people did like it, and it obviously did really well.
I get your point, absolutely. But as I've said before, the great thing about the Last of Us TV show is I get to enjoy the story and not play the bad game. So,
well, there is always that. So it's
how
it's
quickly audiences gonna get used to the sad dad template that PlayStation have. I'm like,
well, it depends.
It's brave to be like, hey, after our big show about sad dad in the apocalypse, we're gonna do our big show about sad dad in the Norse apocalypse. Oh man, it's just I don't know if it's the COVID running through my brain right now. I've gotten worked up about this.
Well, the thing is, the thing I was going to say about PlayStation is that you have this whole sort of move towards launching or recodifying PlayStation Studios, the new logo. It was all under the Jim Ryan era, and you could see the franchise plan there. It's like, new game, announce a new game, remaster the old one, do the TV show, do the movie. It all makes sense. You can franchise the whole thing. Like Gran Turismo randomly just got a movie, Uncharted got a movie, and then they remastered the original trilogy. Like, you got all that stuff, which made like perfect business sense. But obviously Jim Ryan stepped down, the live service stuff went away, and assumedly there's a bit more curation happening in regards to how that stuff is coming together. Like, so far I've not disliked any of the movies or anything. I thought Uncharted was harmless. I like the final set piece, whatever. But it's at the same time, it felt like a product tie-in. It wasn't something that needed to exist by itself. Fallout at least feels like it has a soul, and is worth existing, kind of thing. And I think it's interesting looking at, why do these things exist? Like, are they fundamentally roads back to the game? Probably. Or is it worth? Is a team exploring a story in a different medium? Almost definitely not. And so I'm curious about how each one kind of lands. But you've seen someone like Konami did Castlevania with Warren Ellis, and was it Warren Ellis, I think, and it was like. He'd never played the games, but he like sort of dove into the first 3 seasons, picking and choosing different elements, and Castlevania is phenomenal. Like, all 4 seasons, absolutely love it. And then you've got Ubisoft doing Blood Dragon over on Netflix, where they sort of did, what if Rayman was a news anchor, and what if it was all these different characters? And it's like, that's kind of, there's a frog assassin from Assassin's Creed, and it's like, okay. And so you're seeing all these different studios try things, and I think it is just because the lens is on gaming, and it's like, what can we do with these stories and these characters? And then it's going to be on us to sort of sift through and be like, well, that's just an advert, or that actually needs to exist, or whatever. But I don't think we're anywhere near done. I think it's going to take another few years. This is like where we were at with the first Iron Man. Like, this is 2008. Like, it's a long time till we get to the Avengers and everything else.